Hi, I'm Elizabeth Knopf, and I'm currently the Director of Sales Operations and Enablement at Axon Enterprise, formerly Taser. Welcome to Sales Tech Enablement, how to 10x your sales organization leveraging automation and AI. So some quick background on myself. I have over 10 plus years of experience in the tech industry, everything from investing in tech startups as a venture capitalist, as well as an angel investor. I still do that as an entrepreneur, as well as working in high growth tech startups and companies, and now currently work in a senior role at Axon, which is a large public corporation, and helping to build and scale their sales engine. So I own the leveraging technology, content, and intelligence to scale our overall sales strategy and customer journey across channels and across customer touch points. So just a quick shout out to Axon as well. It's an amazing company to work for. We are growing rapidly. So if you are interested, please come check out the link below at axon.com/careers or reach out to me directly. I'm happy to address any questions or concerns and share my experiences at the organization. We are a socially conscious business where our mission is to protect life, and we have a vision to obsolete the bullet, reduce social conflict, enable a fair and effective criminal justice system, and eradicate racism and excessive use of force within the justice system. Anything I mention about our organization historical, and I just want to mention this because we are a public company, so nothing is forward looking. Also, we have a very complex business. And so regardless of what your business model is, this presentation will be relevant to you. We actually have everything from selling software and software as a service with our evidence.com and record management systems to financed hardware such as our body worn cameras and our Taser weapons, or consumables, all the batteries and cartridges we sell for those products, usage-based software system. We sell services, event-driven services. We have multiple channels. So we have a highly complex organization and business model. And so we've had to think through how to piece together all the different pieces of our sales technology to support this highly complex ecosystem and all of our offers to our customers. We also sell specifically to law enforcement, private security, corrections, and are expanding into a wide variety of other segments as well. So just a quick distinction on sales enablement versus operations, since every organization has a little bit different definition of this, as well as customer operations and revenue operations, which are ever evolving areas within the sales org. So I like to think about sales enablement really is engineering and designing and architecting what the sales engine and system looks like. And sales ops is really about keeping the trains running on time. And so overall, sales enablement is a pretty exciting area because it's cross-disciplinary. I like to think that the whole org is coming into our hub, and we're helping to figure out the best ways to communicate with our customers and connect all of that with our sales organization, as well as all the other departments within the organization. So just to give you some context on the overall sales tech ecosystem, it's been fast growing and evolving over the last 10, 20 years and more, and it's going to accelerate with the advent of AI. So obviously we really started off with Salesforce with their CRM in the cloud and developing the cloud as an overall way of delivering software. And as that built out and they developed an ecosystem around that, that's really advanced a lot of sales tools where now you can look at any point within the funnel and there's going to be a solution to address those needs. And as that started to evolve, then you had a lot of personalization to help reflect the relationships that salespeople create, and how do you actually translate that into bits and bytes overall to have those better touch points, better visibility into the customer as a whole. And then niching began to take place where not all business models are created equal, nor segments. And so a lot more technology has adhered to any specific requirements within a specific business segment. So whether it's healthcare, auto, retail, there's probably a solution that's highly tailored, or at least part of that workflow is tailored for that industry. And then of course, APIs have really unlocked a lot of potential and opportunities where historically you've had humans helping to connect these products or fill in any gaps. With APIs, it really can help make a seamless workflow on the back end or for customer facing experiences, or as well as sales experiences. And then one area I'm really excited about is really how they've been moving towards no code from low code, because this enables to have more pervasive amounts of talent to support software, where historically software programs have been very resource sucking, because you had to have a lot of people supporting the overall systems to make sure they were just up to date, maintained, or just to customize and develop them to meet your needs. And now, as less code is happening, more flexibility is happening, it's going to really allow for talent to meet up with the needs of the organization and leverage a lot more tools. And then finally, vertical integration. And when I think about this, I really think about this as the customer and sales experience as a whole, where it's really about a full customer's life cycle. And so you really need to think about how your technology is reflected in all the different touch points within the customer journey, so that it is very comprehensive and it's not having to log into 20 different systems depending upon what department you want to interface, and you can get issues addressed immediately. And then finally, AI is really going to unlock a whole new world of opportunities, which I'll get into why in a second. So automation and AI are different. Automation is really about taking the human out of the robot, where you need to have really strict rules and a repetitive process to get a lot out of it and to make sure it's a good tool. However, if you put bad inputs in, you're going to get a bad output, and there's still a lot of manual intervention and support required. AI is super exciting because it's going to be a lot more dynamic. This is really about putting human into the robot, where it's going to become intelligent and help provide insights well beyond our capabilities as humans. A quick example is we started using a tool that actually records, transcribes, and helps to elicit insights from our sales conversations. Whereas before, this was basically a game of telephone, pun intended, from our sales managers all the way up to our execs, and a lot would get lost in translation. Well, now we have concrete data to know what is actually happening with all these sales conversations, and thus we can get better market intelligence. And it actually allowed us to save time in adjusting one of our packages for one segment of our customer base, and being able to adapt much faster versus looking at any lagging indicators such as our revenue in that segment. So a lot of different applications going forward. Recommendation engines we see all the time on the consumer side, but these are being developed more aggressively and faster and more uniquely. Pricing, forecasting, lead scoring, market intelligence, as I mentioned, and various forms of sales communication, as well as a wide variety of other applications. AI is just at the beginning, and you're going to start seeing basically AI helping to adapt across the board in many different capacities within the overall funnel. And I won't go into this specifically, but if you do have any questions, I've actually reviewed probably about 80% of these different companies. This is more sales technology as a whole, not specifically AI, but a number of these actually down in that intelligence and analytics area are leveraging AI. There's a lot more incredible solutions out there from an AI perspective, and I love looking at any of the new ones. So please feel free to reach out to me directly if you have any questions on these. So as you're starting to build out your sales tech programs and investing in different software, there's really two different mindsets. It's incremental improvements or thinking about these big problems to solve. Now, I actually think both of these have their place, but it's really important if you're going to buy and invest in a new piece of software that you're looking at 10x problems. There are hidden factors that will derail you if you are not thinking about big problems to solve. It will take more time than you anticipate. anticipate. It will take more resources than you anticipate. And so you really want to think about those 10x problems, because those are the worthwhile ones on really building out a program to support, because it's not just build it and they will come and everything will be perfect. So you need to think about those big problems. That said, there is a place for 10% incremental improvements in twofold. So number one, when you make a large investment in this 10x problem, you actually are going to iterate to achieve that 10x. Very rarely are you going to be able to reap that ROI very, very quickly. It's usually an iterative process because it takes time to get people to adopt something. Sometimes an exception is when you're wiping out a department or certain roles and repetitive tasks that are happening. You might be able to see that, but typically you have to iterate to achieve that 10x. And that especially happens on the revenue and top line side. And then the other place for a 10% mindset or process of approaching implementing your software is for small customizations or features. AI ends up being slightly different, where you can actually see returns much faster because you're going to have less potential human engagement and unlock a lot more insights and opportunities than you would with some of these other programs. As well as you often see sort of a plateau when you implement tools and software and you make these improvements. AI doesn't necessarily have that limit or cap. So just quick examples on a 10% problem was when we had a challenge with our finance team and our sales team communicating on a certain status between two different systems and where that customer was in that process. And so by integrating those, we were able to provide better visibility for our sales team and thus for our customer around that. And that decreased a ton of communication and back and forth and delays, which allowed to get to faster resolution for that customer. Now, 10x problems, we've addressed quite a few of these that I've seen over the past couple of years. We've implemented new software for our e-commerce channel to drive self-service and ultimately create more capacity for our sales team. We've also been able to roll out a whole new software portal for our customers that allows even more self-service on operational challenges that passed over to our sales team prior to this portal. And then finally, we've brought in-house one of our product lines that was a service line that had a whole separate experience on how it was purchased. And so customers had to log into a whole other system. And now we've integrated that to make it one area that's cohesive. And it has just made our customers much happier. Determining when to automate is also extremely crucial. So when you're in the early stages of a business or have a new department or a new segment in your organization, if you're larger, it's really important to avoid automation because you don't yet know what the process is going to look like. And so when you're thinking automation, you're definitely needing to figure out first if you have channel market fit and product fit, what that process looks like. Is it repeatable? Do you know your customer well? Because if you build out a whole infrastructure, your focus shouldn't be there. You should be focused on getting the results and customers. And you can sort of manage on the back end with a lot of ad hoc processes to get to that result. It just might not be smooth and as scalable, but you need to prioritize that result over having this beautiful workflow. Now, on the other side of things, as you grow and have more complexity, you can waste a ton of resources by having these extravagant processes with a ton of humans and a lot of costs associated with that, where automation could then serve you extremely well. So you don't want to do it too early and you don't want to do it too late. Also, you want to be cognizant, as I mentioned earlier, that if you do it later, you've addressed sort of improving those 10% challenges before you bring in new things, because even bringing in new things will slow you down. And so we had an example where one of our new business segments, one of the sales leaders asked us to customize certain fields in Salesforce. Simple requests, but we actually told him no, because we wanted to make sure it was clear on what was going to happen, because we had a massive backlog with our Salesforce team, and we've already seen 20 different changes in terms of how they were approaching the business. And so it's really important you do it at the right point in time. Now, process and people always should come first. Examine if you can improve these things or if a problem is happening, if it's due to one of those factors, because oftentimes it is. And people think that software is going to be a magic bullet, but you know what? Oftentimes it's related to the process and the people. And by adding new customizations and features, could be behavioral, where you add a new field in, but nobody's using the old one. So why would you add something new that they're not going to adopt? So it's really important to make sure these things are addressed before you automate. And I would say just avoid the question of automating until you've really evaluated other ways to solve the problem. Technical debt is unfortunately a necessary evil. As you grow as an organization, which is always a good problem, you're going to acquire technical debt. Now, the biggest times this comes up is when you have new business models or you're rolling out new things and you're trying to leverage your old systems and old infrastructure to support that. And then it starts to feel like you have duct tape and glue holding everything together. That might be a point in time you want to reevaluate what your infrastructure and ecosystem looks like. And if you've gone through as many of those 10% incremental improvements, or you're starting to customize a system to make it look like something completely different than what you bought, and it's actually turning into a whole new type of software, that might be another opportunity you want to wipe the slate clean. Now, automation is different from AI. Most of the things I was just addressing was related to automation. AI is actually going to allow you to implement tools sooner than you would with automation. And this is because it's going to allow for better decision making and saying, hey, this is a bad process, or just adapt to more complexity in a changing environment. So you won't have as much risk. Now, there's still going to be challenges and other risks that'll come up, but it's really going to help allow you to take advantage of these tools much sooner, which is pretty exciting. So one of the key pieces in how you approach your software program, one of the most important things to start off with is organizational alignment. And so if you're thinking about, oh, we have a problem with our quoting, I want to make sure that that connects back up to your organizational goals so that everybody is moving in the right direction. Now, you can definitely make that connection to driving revenue or decreasing costs, which are most likely one of the two areas in which your organization is focused. But it's just really important to make those connections because it'll help you communicate to get buy-in and just make sure you're focused on the right thing. Because again, if everybody is rowing and moving in the same direction, things will move much more smoothly. And you'll have that momentum in being able to achieve 10x. So depending upon how you can break down all the different metrics and pieces, this is by no means comprehensive, but this is just sort of one way to think about how things sort of bubble up into the larger organizational and departmental goals. And then not only from a goal side, but also making sure that your programs are aligned. I came in and joined Axon. We had a e-commerce channel that was basically flat in revenue and in some cases declining in certain quarters. And so one of the problems I identified was that people were thinking about it very piecemeal. So you had someone with an engineering background that came in and really just thought about the system, and then someone else who was salesy and was only really thinking about the sales part, but not the tools and infrastructure. And so with programs, especially channels, products, and other things, you need to think about all the different pieces together and make sure everything is aligned and that all the goals and initiatives that you have are comprehensive. Because if you can bring things together at once, you're going to actually see a lot more success versus sort of piecemealing it or only thinking about one piece of the overall equation. So as we decided we wanted to drive smaller dollar deals through a self-service channel in order to create more capacity and drive more sales on our inside and outside sales side, we had to also think through the process, how the customer experience was going to be, what the infrastructure looked like, what the design, UI, and UX was going to look like, how that was going to flow, and make sure that there was no friction in the overall program and experience. And that allowed us to drive almost 30x results within 3 years. Prioritization is also really, really important. So making sure you know what to focus on when. So here's a couple different criteria you can think through. Not all of these are going to be perfect. It becomes sort of an art and science that you learn over time. If problems are repeating themselves, if they're frequent, and then if it's a customer problem, that's going to be sometimes more important than other types of problems you're addressing. And then, of course, the impact and ROI and resources that are going to be required from the org. This is like a quick little exercise that I like to do because this really helps to communicate within the organization to all the stakeholders, where you define what the problem is you're trying to address when you're looking to purchase any software. Then you're able to provide context in the situation. You're able to measure upfront before you look at any software and get buy-in as to what success looks like. You're able to call out what's in scope and what's out of scope, because everybody will, of course, be asking for features, and there's going to be scope creep, and people want magic bullets, and that's just not going to happen. And so there's probably a roadmap you need to build out, as well as you have limitations on your budget. So you need to make sure it's reasonable, the resources you're going to be allocating to this initiative, as well as what resources this is going to require. That needs to be super clear. And then how you engage your stakeholders is extremely important. And you can always engage your stakeholders early. And so the way I like to also unlock which are the most important problems that are occurring is through what I like to call sales therapy. This is really just listening to the sales team, the customers, in order to develop requirements and identify which problems are happening frequently or the most painful. It doesn't mean that the loudest voice is where the problems are, and you have to obviously use your judgment, but it's really important to unlock all the requirements by listening. Just like a salesperson listens to the customer, it's the same thing. We went through a process where we had one of our partner departments missed a number of use cases, and it became really, really painful because they did not do this. And so it's really, really important that you build out your requirements and you spend plenty of time understanding the needs of your customers. This is like building out products essentially, and it becomes more important the closer you are to your customer or your sales team. And then ultimately, your stakeholders are going to make or break your software program. And that's why it's really important earlier in how you communicate with your stakeholders, but also when you engage with them. Earlier, the better. You want to identify all of the issues up front. You want to listen to them, as I mentioned, and identify all of the requirements before you make any purchasing decisions. And spending more time on that is so crucial and important before you even go down the process of identifying what is a solution that's best for you, before you go through the comparison and driving adoption and ownership. Regardless if you have an agile model or you have other implementation models, you can sort of go through all these different processes. And we do use agile. We like to be iterative in how we bring things even out into the org, but we want to be iterative so that we can start delivering as much value as soon as possible. And so what's important is first that discovery and definition piece. I would spend the most time there up front, because once you are crystal clear on the issues and the problems, then you can help figure out how to solve them, when to solve them, what to prioritize, and so forth. Once you get into the phase that you're ready to evaluate options, again, you need to have those touch points with the appropriate stakeholders, depending upon if you own the budget or not. And you want to have ownership across this whole thing. It might be a different person purchasing and making certain decisions versus ultimately who will be running the program, but you want to make sure there's engagement across the board and clear definitions of ownership. And ultimately, you want to have one person who sort of neck is on the line to ensure success of this program overall. Then, of course, the purchasing, there's a lot of different ways you can go through purchasing, a lot of different models, trials. Those are really good best practice to utilize if you can. It doesn't always work out because of complexity and integrating things. And then implementation. If you have to integrate with other parts of the organization from a technology perspective or otherwise, you want to engage those stakeholders early. We have gone through so many mistakes or have seen other departments who said, oh, we just want to integrate with Salesforce and it'll take a day of work. And our Salesforce team is like, we didn't even know this was happening. We have 20 other priorities. This happens all the time. So please make sure you're engaging those stakeholders once again, and you're evaluating how to get this on everyone's roadmap. And then adoption. If you build this, doesn't mean everybody is going to come and use it. So again, you want to make sure users of that tool are engaged early so that you can see how they're going to use it. Are you meeting the requirements and pain points that they have? And you have champions within the overall sales teams that will drive this, and that managers are bought in to help drive the proper behaviors. Because if you have to require more of your salespeople and more administration, it is not going to go well. I promise you this. We have seen this time and time again. And actually, going through a trial, we identified that the workflow on one of the tools we were looking at didn't have the workflow that was super intuitive for our salespeople. So we ended up going with a different provider. And so it's really important to get them engaged early and ultimately have an owner who can help quarterback this whole process. Thanks so much for your time today. Hope you got something out of it. Look forward to your questions. Please feel free to reach out to me about Axon Careers with my contact info below, or stay in touch on industry knowledge and sales contact at knopf.co. Thanks so much. Look forward to hearing from you.